And I think how these sessions came about is myself and a few others who have done some of the traditional studies were then asked to give some supplementary lectures that will complement the topics that you're going through there in Italy. So, yeah, I understand you're going through Abhisamayalamkara. Yes?
Yes, can you hear us?
So,
can you hear us?
In particular, we're going to go a little bit into the topic of Buddha nature. But before we do that, since it's our first time meeting each other, then, yeah, we can do things slowly and systematically. So I hope most of you are already familiar with, setting a motivation at the beginning of a teaching. So please, let's all adjust our motivations. So thinking that the purpose of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. And in particular, so that I can be of utmost benefit for sentient beings, I myself must fully develop all my good qualities and abandon all the faults of the mind. Then and only then will I have the skills, ability, power to work for sentient beings' welfare in the best possible way. And therefore, in order to do that, I need to learn about all the practices, all the various trainings that lead to the state of enlightenment. And therefore, I'm going to participate in this lecture here this afternoon or evening. And then we can also think that whatever merits, positive energy that we create in our time here today, that it only become the cause for all sentient beings, vast as the vastness of space, to quickly purify their minds of all obscurations and attain the state of enlightenment as well. Okay. So now, in preparation for this talk, Joan wrote to me and gave me an MP3 of one of the lectures and the kind of review slides that Siggy had made. And my reaction was, wow, you guys are quite expert. You've already gone through this material in quite some detail. And then I was also asked to forward my PowerPoint presentation a few days early so the Spanish and Italian translators can work on it. So I said, okay, let me do some slides then. So here we go. Ask and you shall receive. So now we'll also do things in the traditional way and start with some preliminary prayers. This, I think you are very familiar with. The third line, of course, instead of by the merits of generosity, here saying the merits of listening to the Dharma. So we can do once in English and a couple times in Tibetan. Yeah. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. O Sangye Chedang Sogi Chonam La Janchu Badu Dami Kyabsu Ji Dagi Chenyen Gibe Soknam Gi Jola Penche Sangye Jubar Jo Sangye Chedang Sogi Chonam La Janchu Badu Dami Kyabsu Ji dagi junsu, dagi junyengi fe sokunangi, jola penche sangi jumpa shog. Is the Italian translation working? Okay.
Yes, it is working.
All right. So now also, yeah, doing things a bit step by step. So before we delve into the topic of Buddha nature, I wanted just to sort of set the stage and talk about the big picture. And what I like to do is, yeah, basically borrow from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And usually when he gives any kind of teaching, even if it's for the very learned geshes here in India, or a more kind of public talk, then he'll start with this fundamental observation that, you know, in Buddhism, the starting point isn't so much the Buddha, but the starting point is to look at our own situation. And so as I think we don't need much explanation, but you know, we all want happiness, and we don't want suffering. And so when we look into that, then we see that, well, although the physical and external material world does play a role in our well-being, actually it is primarily the mind that is the fundamental driver of our happiness and suffering. And this was the kind of unique contribution and discovery of the Buddha. So this first stanza here, I think many of you are aware, but this is from Arya Nagarjuna's Muda Majjhimika. And here he pays homage to the Buddha, saying, enthused by great compassion, you expounded the sublime truth in order to eliminate all wrong views. To you, Gautam Buddha, I pay homage. So actually within this one stanza, then all of the Buddha Dharma is encapsulated. So as many of you know, the mind of great compassion is the wishing others to be free from suffering. And so the Buddha, as you know in his life story, even his leaving the palace life was in part so he could find the lasting means to liberate you know, sentient beings from suffering. And after training and traversing the path, then this discovery of the Four Noble Truths, then he discovered that actually the truth of the cause of suffering is, well, actually our afflicted emotions, the klesha, the nyongmon, that is the root cause of our suffering. And in particular, of all of the afflictions, then the root of the root, as it were, is the ignorant mind that grasps onto a impossible fantasized mode of existence. And therefore, although the Buddha, you know, was enthused by great compassion, then seeing that, you know, since the source of the suffering in sentient beings is fundamentally in our own minds, and in particular in our wrong and distorted views, then the only way to overcome that was then to, you know, teach the truth of reality. So as it says in another sutra, that the Buddhas do not wash away our sins with water, nor do they remove the suffering with their hands, nor do they transfer their realizations to another mind stream, but the Buddhas liberate sentient beings through teaching the reality. So yeah, in a similar way, here we see you expounded the sublime truth in order to eliminate all wrong views. And for that reason, then Arya Nagarjuna pays homage to the Buddha. And, then here we also have perhaps the most famous stanza in all the Buddha Dharma, also in common with the Pali Canon. Do not commit any unwholesome actions, engage in perfect wholesome actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of Buddha. So here, when we talk about the wrong views that that sentient beings have that cause us to suffer, then we can think about them on two levels. One is the conventional level, and the level of conventional reality. We have a mistaken view, not being able to precisely identify the law of karma, and seeing that actually our suffering comes from our unwholesome actions and our happiness comes from the wholesome actions, right? So these first two first two lines of the stanza here are talking about that. And then when we then think, okay, we want to engage in wholesome actions and want to abandon unwholesome actions, well, then the thought is, what makes our actions wholesome or unwholesome? And then we see that it's primarily the motivation with which we undertake our actions that determine whether actions are virtue or non-virtue. And therefore, we need to subdue our mind, means to be able to not be operating under the control of the afflictions, and rather have the control of mind that then will enable us to act as we want with loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. And so that is the teaching of the Buddha. Yes? Okay. Okay. Right. So then, we see oops. Oh, I skipped a slide. Yeah, I thought so. This is good. This is how we should start. Let's start over. So here's some verses from Shantideva, right? And we see, although wishing to be rid of misery, they run toward misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. So we had already, talked about this a bit, but basically the point is, right, because sentient beings have the confusion as to what are the true sources of suffering and happiness, then they engage in destructive behavior, behavior that is not in keeping with the goal. And then here in the second stanza, right? So even those who wish to attain happiness and overcome suffering, that's us. Well, we will wander with no aim if they do not comprehend the secret of the mind, the principal dharma. And so here then, right, then these wrong views, the secret of the mind, can be understood on these two levels. One, secret, not because, we can't tell others about it, but because the workings of subtle karma are such that they're not obviously apparent to us. And therefore, the Buddha then taught these two levels, the conventional truth, the law of cause and effect, and then the ultimate level of the way that phenomena exist. Okay. So then we have this, subdue your mind thoroughly, and that ties into why in Buddhism we have this emphasis on the mind, right? We have all the mind training. Well, that's why we meditate. And so His Holiness the Dalai Lama says there's two reasons why it's important to understand the nature of the mind. One is because there's an intimate connection between mind and karma. Yes. The other is that our state of mind plays a crucial role in our experience of happiness and suffering. So here, what I like to say is, even forgetting the karma and the fact that our actions, positive and negative, then ripen as experiences of suffering or happiness, even in the moment, right? When we're experiencing something, then the way we think about it, it can affect our experience even in the moment, right? So right now, I'll say the room where I am is very hot. I'm sweating a little bit. There's no fan, or actually there is a fan, but I don't know how to turn it on. And it's hot. It's a bit unpleasant. But you see, other times, I like to go to the sauna, right? And when I go to the sauna and I'm in a room and it's hot and I'm sweating, I'll feel, oh, it's so nice. And I might even turn up the heat, thinking that'll help me get rid of the toxins or help me relax, right? So the mere fact of being in a hot room doesn't necessarily entail that one would have a happy or suffering experience. It depends on how we're thinking about that experience. So I think that is, a little bit mundane example, but it gives us an idea of how our state of mind plays a role in our experiences, even on a day-to-day level. Yes? Thank you. So since I'm doing screen share, I see four little tiles on the bottom. Two of them, it's just, one person's name. The other person, it's, a logo. And then I see two people. So I'm not going to single you guys out. But if you two can give a little bit of like this, as I'm talking, it'll be nice. I'll understand that you understand what I'm saying. Okay? All right. So now, concept of Buddha nature. I want to give just a broad overview, and then we can, delve into some more detail. Okay? So Buddha nature, what are we talking about, right? So all sentient beings have the potential to attain enlightenment. Yes? Then these obscurations and the causes of suffering that we talked about are dependent, right? They're dependent on other factors. They're empty of inherent existence, and therefore they're not inherently part of the mind, right? So here, the normal analogy that's talked about a lot is, a glass of dirty water. So although the glass of water might be, temporarily polluted with, dirt or other kinds of toxins, well, there is a way to remove those pollutants, leaving the pure water. So similarly, our mind is temporarily adventitiously, as they like to say, in Buddhist philosophical context, it's adventitiously, it's temporarily obscured by the pollutants of the obscurations and afflictions, but those are not inherently part of the mind. And furthermore, these obscurations are rooted in this distorted view of reality, right? And therefore, when we discover the truth, then that forms a perfect antidote to the obscurations. And therefore, the obscurations can be abandoned, and the abandonment of all obscurations is what we just label Buddhahood. Yes? Okay. So All right. So now, let me stop the screen share for a second. Now I can see more of your faces. All right. So, when I was thinking about what to say for this talk, and I looked at the material you already have been going through, you have a wonderful Larampa Geshe there in Italy who's, much more learned than me. And so I thought, well, there's not so much, for me to add in that way. But what I did think is, well, maybe to try to give a little bit different perspective and try to put this concept of Buddha nature in a bit different context, and hopefully one that is somewhat more practical for our practice. Oftentimes, yeah, I've been there. I studied in the Geshe studies for 17 years, and oftentimes when we're studying, then we're preparing for debates. We're trying to understand all these various philosophical positions and think about how we can defeat our opponents who might be holding other positions, right? Is that what we do? Yes. But at least I won't make any assumptions about how you guys are, but I know in my own studies, then the question as to how then to apply the teachings to our lives, to our practice, that might not be thought about so much. So I'll say this. I think you guys all have studied Lam Rim somewhat. Yes? Very good. Now you guys are studying Abhisamayalamkara. Yes? Also very good. So now, do any of you remember after Lama Tzong Khapa in Lam Rim Chenmo, he pays the homage, right? And then there's the four main outlines, right? Four main outlines of Lam Rim. First one, the greatness of the author in order to engender respect for the teachings. Yes? Okay, good, good, good. When I see blank stares, I hope it's just because the translators are catching up, right? Good. And in that section, when it talks about the greatness of the author, then the very first line is, in general, these instructions are the ones from Abhisamayalamkara. Any of you remember that? That's basically the first line of Lam Rim Chenmo after the homage. Yes? So now all of you, you're studying Abhisamayalamkara, right? So now when you study Abhisamayalamkara, are you like, yes, I see Lam Rim Chenmo. Yes, all the time. Are we able to make these connections? It's a bit difficult. It's a bit difficult.
Hey, Venerable Namjong. Yes, I can say yes.
So of course, yeah, in the first chapter of Abhisamayalamkara, we have the, Jupdan Dempa Namdan Ni Sange Lacho Kunchok Sum, right? So the Drup is the two truths, Dempa is the four truths, Sange La So Kunchok Sum, that's the three jewels. So those topics, very, very easy to see. Very easy to see. But then this topic of, Buddha nature, right? How does that come up in Lam Rim Chenmo? Okay, we can put that aside for the time being. And instead, what I wanted to do actually, is to introduce you to another text. Have any of you studied the Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa? Have you heard of this? Yes, a few of you. So Gampopa was one of the main disciples of Jetsun Milarepa. And actually, this text, Gampopa was, associated with the Kagyu school. So some years ago, maybe 20 years ago, Venerable Antonio Sata, you know him? He's your countryman, very excellent monk, Venerable Antonio Sata. He created a bit of a stir, a controversy, because he taught the November course here at Kopan. Oh, by the way, I'm at Kopan. Did you know that? I'm at Kopan. And you want to hear something exciting? In 10 hours from now, I'm leaving for Laudo. Isn't that amazing? Yes. I thought it was going to be 34 hours, but they moved it up a day. So anyway, in any case, Venerable Antonio, he taught the November course, the November Lam Rim course here, using this jewel ornament of liberation as the basis, which, as Prachi Arya is now saying in the meeting chat, it's Kagyu. It's Kagyu. So I think it's very nice. I think it's very nice. We can be very little bit insular, right? Where we are, especially you guys, you're studying at Instituto Lama Tzong Khapa, right? So it's like the very crown jewel in the FPMT of the learning, and the center of Galupa, very traditional learning. And so sometimes we might not be exposed to texts a little bit outside our tradition, but I think it can really help to see how other authors approach, and in particular, as we'll see in a second, this the way that Gampopa lays out the Lam Rim. Well, let's just jump into it. His starting point, right? So in Lam Rim Chenmo, the starting point is how to devote yourself to the spiritual friend. Yes? I mean, after all the preliminaries. But the actual instructions start on how to devote yourself to a spiritual friend. Gampopa's point of departure is Buddha nature. So let's go back to the slides. So, Gampopa. So he says, yeah, these six points, right? Prime cause, basis, condition, means, results, and activities. By these six general key terms should the wise know peerless enlightenment. So here, the prime cause is Buddha nature. The basis is the most precious human existence. Okay. The special condition is the Dharma master. The means is the Dharma master's instruction. The results are the bodies of perfect Buddhahood. And the activity is to non-conceptually fulfill the welfare of beings. You see. So, let's stop this for a sec. So, why start off with the concept of Buddha nature, right? So I think you've seen this, right? In the actually in the Abhisamayalamkara, where it talks about the two types of followers of Dharma, right? We have the followers of faith and the followers of reasoning, right? Have you gone through this? Followers of faith, followers of reasoning. So what does this refer to? This refers to the beings who, in the development of bodhicitta, okay? The followers of faith, okay, so we all know bodhicitta? Bodhicitta, the wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, right? So in general, they say that the followers of reasoning, these are the sharp faculty disciples, right? Okay. So actually both, as you know, prior to the development of bodhicitta, you need this great compassion, right? So in the 7-point cause and effect instructions, you would train from recognizing all beings have been your mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, and then the affectionate love, then the compassion, and then the point 6, laksan ninje, or the extraordinary aspiration. Yeah, is that how you translate it? So this one, as you know from the Georgia prayers, right? When we say, for example, when we do the 4 immeasurables, how wonderful would it be if all sentient beings were free from suffering? May they be free from suffering. And then I myself will free them from suffering. You see? So that one, I myself will free them from suffering, is the mind that then takes responsibility to free sentient beings from suffering. Okay? So in that context, right, this is what we call the great compassion, right? In Tibetan, we talk about the drel dögi ninje and the kyop dögi ninje, right? Drel is to be free. De is a wish. So there's a type of compassion that wishes sentient beings to be free from suffering. And then the kyop dögi ninje, kyop is the same word as like cap, as the refuge or protection, right? So that one is the wish for yourself to protect them or liberate them from the suffering, right? And so in the context of the development of bodhicitta, that is what is referred to as the great compassion, okay? So both of these followers, the follower of reasoning and the follower of faith, they get to the point of great compassion. But the thing is, with the sharp faculty being, right, as you know, right, all that's left in the 7 points, right, it goes from the extraordinary aspiration, and the next one is bodhicitta. But with between those two steps, there's actually a little further contemplation that needs to happen, right? And that is basically this recognition that, yes, I take responsibility to free all beings from suffering, but in my current state, I'm unable to do so. But if I were able to attain the state of enlightenment, characterized by the complete development of all good qualities, the abandonment of all faults of the mind, then I'd be able to work for sentient beings in the best way. And therefore, that's what I'm going to do. Yes? You remember that? Do we think like that? So, the sharp faculty being, right? Before they go and make that aspiration, I will achieve enlightenment, right? They then need to understand that the attainment of enlightenment is possible, right? They're not going to, as it were, sign on the dotted line and say, I'm going to attain enlightenment, only later to find out, sorry, enlightenment isn't possible. You see? And therefore, it is said that before they generate bodhicitta, they realize emptiness. They realize emptiness because they're trying to understand if the obscurations are suitable to be abandoned, right? Right? Buddha's telling us, hey, truth of the cause of suffering, right? The root of samsara is this ignorant mind grasping onto true existence. Well, we need to then know, we need to understand that that is not only a wrong view, yes. Therefore, we need to understand that the object held onto by that view doesn't exist. And then we have to understand that, well, through repeated familiarization and meditation on the correct view, that that mind can be abandoned. So after going through all of this, then, and only then will they generate the mind of bodhicitta. Now, the followers of faith, right, they're not quite like that. Why they're called the followers of faith is then when they hear their Lama, their Guru, talk about all the great qualities of enlightenment, they have faith, they have trust in their Lama, and they say, well, my Lama said enlightenment is possible. I'm going to go for it. And that's it. That's all they need. So for these, and then they develop the mind of great compassion. Then they develop bodhicitta, and then later they realize emptiness. Whereas the followers of reasoning, then first great compassion, then realization of emptiness, then the development of bodhicitta, right? So now here, Gampopa, right? It can be said that the kind of intended disciples of his treatise here are those followers of reasoning, because he starts he says, as mentioned above, you need to gain freedom from the deluded nature of samsara and to attain highest enlightenment. However, you may well wonder, even if we or other ordinary people like us were to try very hard, how could we ever possibly attain enlightenment? Right? So then he says, in truth, anyone who practices with great effort cannot fail to reach enlightenment. Why? Because all forms of conscious life, including ourselves, possess its prime cause. Within us is Buddha nature. You see? So here, to talk about Buddha nature first is, to give us that, the sense that if we practice hard, we can achieve enlightenment because, well, Buddha nature is this potential to achieve enlightenment. Okay? So then he states, well, three quotations from Sutra, right? That just basically say, right, in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, Buddha nature totally permeates all beings. In the Great Passing into Nirvana Sutra, all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. And then there's also this other quotation, just as butter, for example, exists in milk as something totally permeating it, so does Buddha nature permeate all sentient beings. And then also a quotation from the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras. Suchness is the same for all and everyone. It is that which is pure. Since this is the Tathagata, all beings are endowed with this essence. Salud. Okay. So now, as many of you know, just because we might see some quotations from the Buddha suggesting that all beings have Buddha nature, we don't just leave it at that. We're not followers of faith, right? We're followers of reasoning. So then we have to ask, well, what is the reason? Why do we say, or why does the Buddha say that all beings have Buddha nature, right? So this quotation, it's there in the text that you guys study from Jetsun Chugi Gyaltsen, right? Yes? Or are you studying from Gyaltsab Je? Okay, sorry, I'm sharing screen again. Maybe someone can write in the chat. You guys doing
Can you hear me?
Gyaltsab Je's, how do you translate it? Ornament of the Essence, Namshin Ningpo Gen, or are you doing Jetsun Chugi Gyaltsen?
Ornament of the essence.
Vanamon Namjong, can you hear when we speak?
Either way is a little bit of a trick question because both of those commentaries will cite this passage from Maitreya, okay? So no worries. Okay. So here, Maitreya in the Uttaratanta, which by the way is a commentary written from the perspective of the Madhyamika system, then he says this: because the Buddha's body pervades all, because suchness is without differentiation, and because they possess the potential, every living being at all times has Buddha nature. Okay, so now I'm going to invite a little bit of participation from the audience. right? So first of all, you've seen this quotation, right? You've seen this quotation? I'm pretty sure it's in Ornament of the Essence. Okay. So now this is giving us the reason that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. Okay.
Venerable Namjong, can you hear us when we speak?
So how does this establish that all beings have Buddha nature? First, let's understand what is meant just by the words here. Because a Buddha's body pervades all. So the Buddha's body. So normally this is glossed as the Dharmakaya. Now, you'll see later in the Uttaratanta that there are these 10 analogies for this the Tathagatagarbha, or the Buddha nature. And so one of them is like, for example, there's a treasure that is buried under the kind of doorway of a very, modest shack. And there's a relatively poor family that lives there. And the whole time they're living there, they don't know that there's gold just right under their doorstep. And because of that, they remain in poverty. There's another analogy about how there is a very precious Buddha statue that is wrapped in rags left on the side of the road, such that as people pass by, then they just think it's a pile of rags, and no one investigates. But actually, if someone were to do that, they would discover this precious statue. So there's, anyway, many analogies like that. So here, Gampopa says, to explain this first reason, the Dharmakaya, emptiness, pervades all beings. Here, the Buddha is embodied in Dharmakaya, and the Dharmakaya is emptiness. Since emptiness is something that pervades all beings, it follows that those beings have the essence of Buddhahood. Yeah?
This is open.
So, yes, in general, those of you who know the four bodies theory, right? In general, we have the two bodies of the Buddha, the three bodies of the Buddha, the four bodies of the Buddha, right? So when we have the two bodies, it's the Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. Then when we split into three, the Rupakaya becomes the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya. And then when we split into four, the Dharmakaya becomes the Svabhavakaya, or the nature truth body, and the wisdom truth body, the jhana, kaya. Yes. So in general, the nature truth body is the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. And later, if you want to get into it, then, when we talk about the naturally abiding lineage, is the emptiness of our mind. The emptiness of our mind then becomes when we become enlightened, it becomes the nature truth body, right? So here, Gampopa is saying the Buddha's body, the Dharmakaya, pervades all, means all beings' minds are empty, and therefore all beings have the potential to become enlightened. Yeah, it's good. But as you know, how the Tibetan, the Gelugpa scholars will gloss this. They'll say that, the Buddha's body, yes, the Dharmakaya, but it'll say the activities of the Dharmakaya pervades all beings, right? means that the Buddhas are working constantly for the benefit of all beings. Yeah, pervading all without exception. Without differentiating between friend, enemy, stranger, like that. Yeah. So then, because suchness is without differentiation, yeah. So here, suchness or emptiness, it is the lack of inherent existence. And so whether we talk about the emptiness of the Buddha's holy mind, or the emptiness of the anger in my mental continuum, both are discussing or referring to the lack of the same object of negation. Both the Buddha's mind and my angry mind are lacking in inherent existence. So in that sense, the object of negation is not differentiated. Okay. So now we should think or question, how then does that support this thesis that all beings have Buddha nature? Why does the fact that the emptiness of my mind, yes, is lacking inherent existence, and then the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, also lacking inherent existence, how does that then support the thesis that all beings have Buddha nature? Just come up in your classes. Okay. You can let that marinade, yeah? Or like risotto. We have risotto, you have to add keep adding the water, let the rice cook for a long time, right? So we can let that cook for some more. Third line, because they possess the potential, every living being at all times has Buddha nature. So what does this mean? The potential to achieve enlightenment? If that's the case, then isn't this a very circular type of reasoning? Maitreya is trying to say why all beings have Buddha nature. And then he says, they have Buddha nature because they possess the potential to be enlightened. But that's what Buddha nature is, right? So it seems that could be a little bit circular reasoning, right? What do you think?
Can you hear us, Venerable Namjong?
Okay, we can let that cook some more too. Anyone want to venture a thought? Oh, someone is saying they're trying to talk. Can you hear them? And no, I cannot hear anyone. So hold on.
Venerable Namjong,
I need to change my settings. Okay, 1 second. Ah, that's right. Okay, how about now?
Can you hear us now when I'm
I
speaking?
can. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. You probably have been saying all the right answers.
I'm not so sure
I've
about
been,
that, but
I've
it's
been
okay.
talking over you. I've missed out on all the learning that I could have gained from you. I'm very sorry.
How are you? Good to see you.
Now I can finally hear. Oh my gosh. You see, this really proves how all suffering is rooted in ignorance. I was unaware. I was unaware that you were trying to speak. And so I couldn't hear. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so maybe after all of that, if you can phrase the question again, because we were trying to figure out what's the problem.
There's a few things. Let's go back to the share screen. All right. So we have this, and those of you who have that ornament of the essence, you can like look it up, and yeah, I'll bet you an espresso next time we meet that this stanza is there.
Done.
Yeah, you found it? So then the question is, this stanza is supposedly the one that is proving that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And so I'm asking, how does this establish that all sentient beings have Buddha nature? Okay. And particularly, I think line 2 and 3, a little bit tricky. And even the first one, whether we're glossing it like Gampopa and saying that, you know, the Buddha's body pervades all, he's glossing it as emptiness, and basically that all sentient beings are also empty. Okay. So if all phenomena are empty, then why would sentient beings have Buddha nature? Right? How does that establish that all beings have Buddha nature? And then we're talking about the suchness, right, between our mind and the Buddha's mind without differentiation. How does that prove that all beings have Buddha nature? And then this third one, what does that mean? If it's just they possess the potential means they possess the potential to become enlightened, isn't that what we defined as Buddha nature? And then doesn't it just become a circular reason?
Hello, Venerable. Do you hear me?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have an answer, but one thing that came up was that it's the object of observation. So through observing the suchness of the mind, then that mind can become pure. I wonder how this relates to this. I thought because suchness is without differentiation, and because they're able to, because they're not just like rocks, they can perceive it, and then all sentient beings can become enlightened in that way.
Yes. So you see, when I introduced the topic, so thank you. When I introduced the topic a little bit before, oops, right? This is how I like to think about it, right? So the obscurations in particular, right? The cause of suffering, they are empty, right? Empty of inherent existence, not inherently part of the mind. Not inherently existent means they're subject to causes and conditions. Subject to causes and conditions means if the causes change, the results can change. Not only that, right? But then this thought that through discovering the truth of reality, right, then our belief in inherent existence will be undermined, right? Hmm? So I think that's what you're getting at, right? Sentient beings, through realizing, subsequently meditating on emptiness, they can be abandoned. That's good. That's good. But here, Maitreya, in this quotation, right, isn't really talking about that. Or is he? Not explicitly, maybe, right? Okay. So we can, anyone else have something to say?
Hey, Venerable Namjong. The only thing that I can, with my very, not very vast understanding of this, because we have to hear it more than once, I would say that because the Buddha was able to get enlightened, therefore we are able to get enlightened because of the nature of emptiness. But I'm still very much, I don't have enough language and understanding thoroughly all the things in order to give you a very academic answer right now.
I don't want a very academic answer. No. No. But it's interesting, right? We would like to say that, right? The Buddha got enlightened, therefore we can get enlightened, right? So I was going to share, huh?
That's the hope that we are basing our teachings and
Yes,
practices right now on.
exactly. Well, this is the thing. I was going to share the story a bit later, but I'll share it now because it's timely. So just to talk a little bit about myself. So as I got into Dharma, you know, uh, I got into Vipassana. Actually, Venerable Antonio Sata, he also spent some time in Sri Lanka learning Vipassana. And later he taught Vipassana in FPMT world. I had the good fortune to go on a month Vipassana and basic Mahamudra retreat in Bodh Gaya. Anyway, I was traveling around in in Asia, and I had been to Thailand. I did Vipassana, and only later did I kind of come into the Mahayana. And it was actually through Venerable Antonio's kindness for teaching this course, because I had already been very interested in Vipassana, that I came to the course. And anyway, this isn't the main part of the story, but it's funny. I remember when I was at Root Institute, we had the dedication prayers, and then there's this dedication. Due to this merit, may I become a Buddha, so I can lead all mother sentient beings to that enlightened state. And I remember I thought it was a typo, mother, right? I thought it was other. And so I even take out my pencil and I cross out the M. So those of you, I hope that translates into the Italian, mother and other, right? In any case, after that course, many of the students were going up to Dharamsala, and at that time, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was teaching for 2 weeks at Losar. So I received teachings on the words of my perfect teacher, the Nyingma Lam Rim. And well, anyway, after that, I was sort of reading books in the Tibetan tradition, but practicing Vipassana. And I went back to the US and I volunteered at a few Vipassana centers. And when you volunteer there, you get access to the teacher. And anyway, I spoke to this teacher and I told him about my plight, that I really liked the Vipassana practice, but I had received teachings from His Holiness. I, really liked the Mahayana and especially this concept of bodhicitta, wanting to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. What should I do? And you know what he said? He said, you can't get enlightened. You can't get enlightened. And the reasoning, if you had the potential to be enlightened, you would have already been predicted by the Buddha. You're not. Therefore, you can't get enlightened. Okay. So, did some research. In the Pali Canon, you might have seen this, any of you who have been to the Theravadan countries. So I saw this in Sri Lanka, where in the Pali Canon, they speak of 28 Buddhas. So this is from beginningless time. You understand? From beginningless time until now, there have been 28 Buddhas. Shakyamuni is the 28th. Maitreya, they accept as being 29th. After Maitreya, who knows? You see? So for them, hey, the Buddha did it, is no way a persuasive thing. So they're even saying, it's very interesting, actually. It's very interesting. It's not to criticize, but to understand, right? So if you're coming from that philosophical worldview, that all sentient beings don't have the potential to become enlightened, but they think, well, you have the potential to become liberated. You have the potential to get out of all this mess of samsara. So just do that, right? So if you're coming from that perspective, in one way, it's a little bit kind that that teacher would give me that advice, right? It would be like, for example, if I told you I wanted to, have a career as an NBA basketball player, right? Hmm. And then, a very practical, parents would say, son, you should study math. Study math and science so you can get a job. I don't think the NBA is going to work out for you, right? It's kind of kind, right? Mm. So it could be, yes, uh, the Buddha attained enlightenment. Yes. They could even say, yes, the afflictions aren't intrinsically part of your mind, but you don't have the ability to abandon them, right? And this is what the mind-only school is saying when they talk about the different kinds of lineage, right? Anyway, time is yeah, running out, just like in our lives. So let's continue, and then I want to open it up for your questions, okay? I gave you some of my questions, but let's continue. So here, in this third line, because they possess the potential, Gampopa glosses it in this way. So it's not just the potential to achieve enlightenment, but it talks about these different potentials. So here there's 5. Those with severed potential, or the Rik Chepe Kansa, undetermined potential. So this is the one, undetermined in the sense that if a person meets with a Lama who is a Shravaka, then they will become a Shravaka themselves. If they meet with a Mahayana teacher, they'll enter the Mahayana like this. And then we have the Shravaka potential, Pratyeka Buddha potential, and those with Mahayana potential. So the severed potential, that's the one that usually gets a lot of attention in the debate courtyard, right? So here there's 2 sources for that. So Asanga in the Shravaka levels, he talks about severed potential. So here again, well, let's read the quotation first. Though seeing what is wrong with samsara, they are not in the least put off by it. Though hearing about the qualities of enlightened beings, they feel not the slightest faith in them. Without conscience and shame, and devoid of even a little compassion, they feel not the slightest regret for the unwholesome acts in which they fully indulge. Through compounding those 6 shortcomings, they are far from ready for enlightenment. Okay. And then the other place where this is talked about, Ornament of Mahayana Sutras. So Ornament of Mahayana Sutras was written from the mind-only school perspective. And well, here Maitreya says, it is certain that some are solely engaged in what is harmful, some are constantly destroying whatever is good, others lack those virtues conducive to liberation. They are devoid of anything that could in any way be wholesome. So I think, yeah, if you've studied this, you'll know that in the mind-only school, they do talk about beings who only have the potential to become, say, a Shravaka Arhat, but don't then have the potential to become enlightened. And they also talk about these, those with severed potential, means not having the potential to achieve any kind of liberation whatsoever. So, yeah, in the Mahayana context, then they do talk about this severed potential as being a temporary state, right? But not a permanent state, right? So here, just to talk about this, then, those who are solely engaged in what is harmful means, non-virtue, right? Always engaging in non-virtue, and then constantly destroying whatever is good means then through anger, as you know, can destroy roots of virtue, right? So they're engaging in non-virtue. Any virtue they do accumulate, they destroy it through getting angry. And then others lack those virtues conducive to liberation. So they might have virtue that would then make them be reborn in the higher realms or be born wealthy. But, well, those aren't conducive, means they don't become the cause to liberation. As you know from the 3 scopes or the 3 types of practitioner, then, since our motivation is primary, then in order for something to become a cause for liberation, well, aside from making offerings to the Buddha or doing circumambulation and so forth, then it needs to be motivated by a wish to achieve liberation. right? So those beings, if they are just, only wanting a good rebirth, then they haven't graduated to the middle capable being, and they won't achieve liberation until they generate that wish. Like it says in the beginning of the three principles of the path. Unless you have the mind that seeks liberation, there's no way to pacify the mind seeking pleasurable effects within samsara, also craving for cyclic existence, thoroughly binds those to cyclic, the embodied beings to cyclic existence. Therefore, from the outset, generate the mind or seek the mind of renunciation. Something like that, right? Yes, so that's why. So now, and yeah, as we saw in this other one, you see, that's what's talked about in this first line. Although you might see the faults of samsara, then not put off by it means having no renunciation for it, therefore not aspiring to liberation. So, yeah, that's quite something, right? I wonder, though, I think our problem is we don't see what's wrong with samsara. If we truly saw what was wrong with samsara, I think we would be put off by it. As it says in the Guru Puja, we ask our Guru to please pacify the mind that views samsara as a beautiful park, right? So I think most of us, it's like that. We think that, true happiness is to be found somewhere in samsara, just not where we've been looking thus far. Okay, so before we get into our questions, or sorry, a few more questions for you. As I mentioned, a lot of this talk of those with severed potential, it comes up in the debate a lot. And, when we talk about then from the Mahayana context, why did then the Buddha teach these severed potential beings if they don't exist in actuality? And as I think most of you remember, it's because, although, ultimately no one has, completely severed the potential for liberation or enlightenment in a kind of temporary way, right? We can, right? So if we are only engaged in harmful actions, if we are constantly destroying our virtue with anger, if we are not, meditating and practicing with a wish for at least liberation, then the actions that we do will just, further our stay in samsara. So rather than, just leaving it at the part of, well, yeah, that mind-only school position is wrong. All beings have Buddha nature. I have Buddha nature. Then, even Gampopa here, it wasn't just that he left it at all beings have Buddha nature, but then talked about, the condition. In order to awaken that potential for enlightenment, we need to have this precious human rebirth with which we can practice Dharma, So, this question comes up, right? if we have the potential to become enlightened, it means, if it's possible for us to achieve enlightenment, then why haven't we achieved enlightenment yet, right? Because we're talking about beginningless rebirth in samsara, right? So those of you, if you've studied probability, right? If we just flipped a coin, we could eventually get, 100 trillion heads in a row if we did it long enough, right? What's the chances of that happening? Very, very, very low, but given enough time, it would happen, right? So now we're supposed to say, oh yeah, we have the potential to become enlightened. It's possible that we become enlightened. So why aren't we enlightened yet? Hello? I didn't mute. Yes?
I mean, what I would say is that there is some enlightened beings that, purified enough karma and afflictions and were able to get into this state that they did that. I mean, everyone has different karma and different path to go through. So I'm guessing since I'm still here, I just didn't finish purify all the things that I needed to purify in order for me to be able to move on. But still, I have the precious human life. So yeah, something there is in the right direction, and I met the Dharma. So yeah.
Well, that is true. You have done many incredible things, to have a precious human rebirth in this time, to even hear the words the Dalai Lama takes a lot of merit. But the question I was giving is, if we've been here from beginningless samsaric rebirth, that means, we've had all the time in the world. And of course, yes, we haven't become enlightened because we haven't done the work. But the mere fact that we're not enlightened, some would say, or can we say, that shows we don't have the potential, because we've already had all the time in the world to do it. We haven't done it yet. Maybe just not in the cards for us.
I prefer the more optimistic version of the Mahayana.
Me too. But you see, this is something we should think about now, because, I mean, as you know, there's even full-fledged bodhisattvas who then fall away from the Mahayana path. And the reason for doing that is, well, it's described. One main reason is they see that enlightenment is going to take an extremely long time to attain. And the other thing they see is that sentient beings are very unruly, and therefore they think, how could I ever benefit these beings, right? So it can come up to us, this is what they said about Shariputra. Shariputra was a bodhisattva, and then, well, he was once asked to give his hand, and so he chops off his hand and gives it to the person. But, he chops off his right hand, gives it with his left, which, as you know, in India is a big no-no. And so the person he gives his hand to gets upset and says, how dare you offer me something with your left hand? Shariputra gets very discouraged, thinking, oh my gosh, how could I ever benefit sentient beings if they're going to act like this? And so said, I'm just going to go for my own liberation. So, there might come a time for us, and especially depending on who we hang out with, they might say, oh, all that Mahayana stuff. It's going to take so long, 3 countless great eons, liberation. Even the very like low faculty, not that intelligent, not that much merit, they can attain liberation, they say, in 16 lifetimes. Not that hard. 3 countless great eons, very long time, right? Anyway, it's good to be optimistic. It's good to be optimistic. But this is just something from my own personal life, my personal journey. It's also good to have something that can give us a little bit armor when we're not feeling so optimistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
So
the
like that.
practice that we have here is
Yeah.
kind of, for me personally, yeah, just from a personal note. I don't know, somehow I always had the inclination of Mahayana, the practices, the meditation. That was what, really got me started at all with Buddhism. And the more that I study here, or even the things that I've done before in Toshita or other places, is the thing that made me feel like this is the right path. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know, somehow I guess I'm more optimistic in my nature and my character, but it's kind of like this two ways to try it out, to study this, see how it resonates with me, and then decide upon this, how to move on. And I remember that I had once a talk and I tried to understand what is this thing that moves on? What exactly is this mind that moves on? And what is this emptiness that we are talking about? And sometimes the answers was like, well, through the practice, the realization that you have is the one that really convinces you. So in a very, very, very simplified, unholy or unreally, I don't have any realizations. But from what I experienced here so far through my journey, I mean, that was what kept me still optimistic and yeah, kind of like more sure in that way. And I hope it remains like this, but I, of course, cannot say definitely because I'm definitely not enlightened yet. But I don't know. That's the thing that I can, the closest that I can give as an answer to that.
Maya, is that you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Hi.
Hi.
Fancy meeting you here.
Fancy meeting you here. It's good to see you.
Because you're one of them has the logo. Maya is a very old and dear Dharma sister of mine. And you hear the monks chanting outside the window. I'm just like listening to the words and I'm like, Maya is especially when you mention Tushita. Anyway, hi.
Hi, it's good to see you. And I'm happy
Good
you're
to
in
see you
Kopan.
too.
Say,
Yeah,
send my love to
yeah.
everyone there.
Will do, will do. Okay. Anyway, that was my own question. And uh yeah, I'll give you my answer. So you see, in the garden or wherever, right? You have the potential to grow, let's say, a lemon tree, right? There's a potential there. But until you plant the seed, fertilize, water it, take care of it, and all this, it's impossible for the lemon tree to grow, right? And you to get lemons. So, yeah, the prime cause of the enlightened mind of the Buddha actually is an unenlightened mind, right? That's what we're saying, right? All sentient beings have Buddha nature, means all unenlightened beings have the potential to be enlightened. So all unenlightened beings means, beings with an obscured mind that has the potential to become pure, right? But until we practice, if although we've been circling in samsara from beginningless time, we've been, always operating under the power of the afflictions, under the power of, self-cherishing mind, all this. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, that, the two big shocks, right? Surprise. That we have to kind of discover, the two shocking discoveries is the one that samsara has been beginningless, but as bad as that is, the worst shock is if we don't change, means if we don't realize emptiness, if we don't traverse the path, then our future samsara is going to be endless, you see. So yes, on one level, we're not enlightened because we haven't, traversed the path. And what's so difficult, right? It's not just the inner condition, but what Gampopa is saying is we need this condition of the precious human rebirth, right? With the intelligence and ability to practice. Then we need the master, the guru that teaches us what to practice, how to practice. And then we have to put in to practice those instructions we received, right? Then we get the cause. Sorry. Then we get the result of enlightenment, right? So, just as if it's a seed, but the seed itself, if it doesn't come into contact with the water and heat and all this, it won't give rise to a sprout, right? So similarly, our Buddha nature, until it comes into contact with, having a precious human body, meeting with a guru, getting the instructions, putting those instructions into practice, all those things need to come together for us to achieve. Yes? So now that we have all of that, well, except for putting them into practice, maybe. But I think all of us, we have the Buddha nature, yes. We have the precious human rebirth. We've met with its teachers, and we've received the teachings. So then it's like we're the ones, we're that family. Even someone has come and said, hey, you know what? You have gold right under your doorstep. By the way, here's a shovel. Here's a shovel. All you have to do is, maybe 40 centimeters, just dig 40 centimeters. There's a kg of gold. What do you think? Okay. With that, a couple things I wanted to share, or more questions for you guys. Oops. So one thing that comes up, right? There's this concept that we're all Buddhas and we just don't know it, and especially some commentators, they'll use these analogies from Uttaratanta to say, right? Have you heard that? You're already enlightened, you just don't know it?
Yeah, we've heard like the version of that.
Yes. So, oh, we only have 20 minutes left. And I actually think your questions might be more interesting than my questions. So, I'll just say this. In general, there's this like path versus instant enlightenment, right? And in general, the Galupa, we're into the path, right? Lam Rim, Lam is path. So we feel that we're on this journey. And then, the instant enlightenment is more like this kind of sudden awakening. It's there in Zen, it's there in some other traditions. So of course, just a very scholastic answer, which, I don't like. But the scholastic answer is, if we're saying that the Buddha is omniscient, that means all-knowing. So if you're saying you are already omniscient, but you don't know it, then that's self-defeating, because there would be something you don't know, namely the fact that you're Buddha, right? So in one sense, that's impossible to be a Buddha and not know it. And so the way that we in the Galupa world traditionally gloss these analogies from Uttaratantra is then to say that we don't know our innermost potential is to become enlightened, right? And therefore, we don't then put forth the effort to cultivate and become enlightened. And that's why we stay as we are. But I will say this. Sometimes, having this other view, it can be helpful, right? Because I know this from my own life. It's hard to have a healthy sense of self-esteem, and especially a healthy sense of self-esteem as a Dharma practitioner, isn't it? Right? There's always more we can learn. There's always times, if you're like me, that we get upset. There's times when we don't feel like we want to practice. There's times when we feel like yeah, all sorts of things can happen. And so then I think it's also like this when we had such a tremendous precious guru in the form of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who literally didn't sleep and spent all this time practicing. And then we have that as our benchmark. And then we look at our own lives and we feel so utterly inadequate. Does it happen?
Of course.
Yes. And so this is the
And
other
then that
risk.
Gorba.
This is the other risk that happens. Then, you know, we're in the Dharma. You guys, you might even be given a piece of paper later that says you've graduated from the master's program, right? It sounds very nice. And then you might find yourself getting very angry, or you find yourself acting like you did 20 years ago before you met the Dharma. And then you might doubt whether all of this works, right? So at that time, to be gentle with yourself, it might be nice to listen to some teachings that you're already enlightened. Like everything's okay. Don't worry too much. Don't stress out too much, right? I think it's very important to have this sense of feeling deeply okay with who you are as you are right now, just as you are. Not needing to change, not needing to practice, not needing to traverse any kind of paths, but just as you are, you're okay. You're worthy to be loved. You need that one. And then you also need this sometimes, right? You need this aspiration that, okay, I'll work in this way. I'll do this kind of practice. I'll study this or that. It's good. And then depending on how you're feeling, you'll need to kind of, like a pendulum, you'll need to swing to one or the other. And only you know really what's going on in your mind. So you have to then monitor and know when to kind of emphasize one way of thinking or the other. That's what I think. So maybe that's it. Let's open up for your questions. Do you have any questions?
Hello, Venerable Namjong. Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, this is Chuying.
Hi,
And
Ching.
hi, I was curious about the statement you made earlier about how Gampopa's text is possibly for the sharp faculty practitioners because of how it starts. So then it sounds like you're asserting that the Lam Rim is for the dull faculty practitioners because it starts with reliance on a spiritual friend.
Wow. I hadn't thought it like that. And I don't want you to come away with that second part of the conclusion. No, because they're not mutually exclusive. The fact that a text is made for sharp faculty doesn't necessarily entail that it would have to start with Buddha nature. But this question that comes up on the first page, we need to know whether becoming enlightened is possible. You know, that's there. That's there on the first page. So, I mean, case in point, Abhisamayalamkara, right? It's Buddha nature doesn't come up first. They typically say that the intended disciples of Abhisamayalamkara are sharp faculty bodhisattvas, aren't they?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
So I'll just say, just listen to what I said about Gampopa's text. That's the reason. And then Lam Rim Chenmo. I don't know. I've never heard that being discussed. I will say this. My hypothesis why the guru is talked about first in Lam Rim Chenmo is because Lama Tzong Khapa's intention was to for his students to also practice Tantra. And yes, foundation of all good qualities is the perfect pure guru, correct devotion to him is the root of the path. Yes, yes, yes. Even in sutra, but especially in Tantra, that's even more emphasized. So, and of course, then the practitioners of Vajrayana are like the sharper of the sharps, right? In terms of faculty, right? So, what do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, I would have debated with you had you asserted that the Lam Rim was for duller faculty.
Yeah, so don't put words in my mouth. I'm joking, I'm joking. Yeah, but thank you for clarifying.
Checking the
Thank you for
consequence.
clarifying. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No pervasion, as we say.
Very good.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions? I saw Shanti Y raise her hand. Now you have to unmute yourself. I'm not muting you. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah,
Oh,
but for the people who want to ask, they need to, from not here, they need to write the question in the chat, Joan says, because some technical stuff. But yeah, but also we have a question from Karen here, so if it's okay, when we have time.
okay, yeah.
Okay, well, hi, Venerable Namjong. I was wondering, in relation to the story you told us about in the, where was it, in Sri Lanka? So because in the tenets texts on the Vaibhashika and the Sutra school, so they have this thing of afflictive obscurations and non-afflictive obscurations, and that they don't posit obstructions to omniscience, but only something with all-knowingness. That's the translation we have. I don't know if you recognize what I'm saying. And I was wondering what this all-knowingness is, because it doesn't seem to be obstruction to becoming Buddha. Yeah, and who abandons those? I don't know if you can say something about that.
Sure, I can say something about that. So one thing to just keep in mind, right? Don't get too caught up in the terminology. So whether you're calling it obscurations to omniscience, or what is the translation you're using?
All-knowingness, and it explicitly says that they don't posit,
Yeah.
they don't have a convention obscuration to knowledge, so it must be
Yes.
something different.
Well, but what do they use? What term do they use?
Well, non-afflictive obscuration and
Yeah, Nyomo Mayimbi Dripa, right? non-afflictive obscurations. So the only one who abandons those is the Buddha, right? So in essence, plane overhead. In essence, you can think of those as, even though they're not calling them obscurations to omniscience, it's essentially the same thing.
So why don't they want to
Like,
call it that?
well, yeah, it's okay. You know, a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet, right? So I don't think you know, just in their texts, they don't have that kind of terminology. Just like they don't really talk about I'm pausing. I wouldn't worry about it really. The point is, okay, whether they call it obscuration to omniscience or nyomomayin midripa, whatever it is, you see, in terms of a living being, only the Buddha has abandoned that. They don't talk about omniscience the way we talk about. They don't talk about one mind directly perceiving both levels of truth and all phenomena in one instant, simultaneous. What they talk about is the Buddha is omniscient in the sense that he could then, as he directs his mind to different phenomena, can realize those sequentially, right? So perhaps because they don't believe in one mind that knows all, they don't then talk about omniscient, but they will talk about all-knowing in the sense that they can then do that. That would be my guess. But even that, Karen, that doesn't have to directly relate with this 28 Buddha assertion, right?
Because this sounds like this is something that people can actually attain, in their, that will be what is abandoned by the bodhisattvas, and then, yeah, seems, it doesn't seem necessarily that there's so few in this text. Yeah, maybe it's just not mentioned explicitly.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you have to keep in mind, you know, these texts on tenets, it's a little unclear if you can make a one-to-one map with any actual living person in the present, past, or future, right? So I always found it very interesting that we would spend a lot of time viewing these texts on tenets written by Tibetans when we now have access to people in Sri Lanka and Thailand, and we can ask them, hey, what do you think about this? So for me, with all due respect to these great ancient masters in Tibet, you know, if you want to know what a Theravadan thinks, go and talk to one.
Okay, thank you.
You have to understand these tenets, they were used as a kind of way to draw out certain differences in philosophical viewpoint, which then ultimately is being used to clarify the unique position of the Prasangika Madhyamika, right? So whether someone, you know, really holds those tenets in that's described in Vaibhashika or the Sastra Tika, then knowing what those positions are then helps to clarify the Prasangika view. Yes?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have 1 more minute.
Yeah. I think Shanti wrote a question
Shanti,
in.
yes, wrote, she took the time. It's just the fact that the afflictions / cognitive obscurations depend on other factors, in parentheses, are empty, enough to prove that we all have Buddha nature? Or do we need to posit that the lack of ignorance, wisdom, abandoning the ignorance is accord with reality necessary? Hmm. So, okay, I'll say it like this. I do not know how many people are the population of Nairobi, Kenya. Okay? That's the kind of ignorance. If I discover the population of Nairobi, Kenya, I won't no longer have the wrong view. Or just the ignorance, right? The type of ignorance we're talking about as the root of samsara is a little bit different than the mere non-knowing, right? And therefore, it's not just that we realize emptiness once and then it's like finished, but we have to repeatedly meditate on emptiness. A lot of time is spent in the, well, among other texts, the Pramanavartika, the Dharmakirti's treatise on logic and epistemology. And there he talks about the feasibility of the conceptual knower realizing emptiness turning into a yogic direct perceiver. That's very important. So my thought is that just merely saying that the afflictions are empty of inherent existence doesn't like more legwork would have to be done to then say that they're suitable to be abandoned. You know, I'm just remembering in Gyaltsab Je's commentary on the Uttaratanta. And yeah, he talks about that all in kind of one paragraph where it's like, by realizing this, you realize that, and you realize this, you realize that. But it was like, if you realize the emptiness of inherent existence, you'll then realize that the grasping to true existence is suitable to be abandoned. And then if you realize that, then you'll realize that omniscience can be attained. And when you read the paragraph, since it's just like all coming next to each other, it seems like they would follow in quick succession. But I think a lot of work still needs to be done between those steps. Okay. I've seen, yeah, okay. Are we good?
Yeah, I'm just passing Joanne for you 1 second. Thank you so much. And if you come here, you're definitely going to get an Italian coffee. Fan of Namjong.
Oh, Because you know I like coffee, or because you found the quotation in the ornament of the essence?
I said that is a combination of two.
Okay.
Okay, Venerable Tenzin Namjong, thank you very much. We have enjoyed so much. And have a nice trip to Laudo and enjoy your stay there. And the students are very happy with your talk, and we keep in touch.
Okay. I'm glad you enjoyed. I also hope you learned something.
Yeah. So if we can dedicate the merits, please.
Yes. So yeah, we can do in a quick way. So please dedicate all the merit that we've accumulated in our time here today, and all the merits accumulated in the past, present, and future by the numberless sentient beings and endless Buddhas, so this mind of bodhicitta can arise in our hearts and in the hearts of all the sentient beings without even a second's delay. And may the bodhicitta that has already been arisen, may it only increase. We also dedicate for the long lives of the spiritual friends, particularly His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May His Holiness and all the other perfect gurus showing the unmistaken path to enlightenment have long and stable lives, and may all of their holy wishes be accomplished immediately. And then we also dedicate for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche and all the other gurus who are, have recently shown the aspect of passing away into the Dharmata. May Rinpoche again manifest in a way that's most beneficial for sentient beings. And may we and all sentient beings always be guided by such perfect gurus such as Rinpoche. And may we be able to put all of their teachings into practice and accomplish their holy wishes immediately. Then we also dedicate for the flourishing of the Holy Dharma and all the Dharma centers, particularly Instituto Lama Tzong Khapa, and all the other centers and projects of FPMT have success in promoting and preserving the Holy Dharma. We also dedicate for the, all of the temporary causes of suffering in the world, suffering due to war, suffering due to environmental degradation, natural disasters, famine, economic problems, mental and physical sickness. All of these be instantly pacified, and all the sentient beings have only the most conducive conditions to practicing and accomplishing the Dharma. Grazie mille.
Okay, thank you very much. Grazie.
Okay. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Oops, I've become blurry.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.